Addiction is quite a complex behavior. It's related also to compulsive type things. And some things, if you see other animals, sometimes they do seem a little bit compulsive with what they do because it's beneficial for their survival. That they do certain things in a certain way and it's being worked out that it's probably good for them or have a better chance of reproducing or finding food or whatever that may be. Sometimes it's not necessarily the quickest way, but it's the most efficient way. And so addiction is similar to that in a sense as well. It's related to our own being. That's why we can become addicted, because it's natural for us to be able to behave in a way is beneficial for ourselves. So it might be an addiction, for example. I wouldn't use the word addiction. I would be more like a compulsion to want to go to sleep at a certain time or to run or at a certain time or to create or something like this. It might be some people seem to have a compulsion to do certain things and over again, yeah? And that in the state of nature will be very beneficial. What we're doing, we're getting external elements or substances in this stage, and we're introducing them. So some mothers that have been addicts have given birth to babies that have been addicted to some substances. But because they're babies, it's a lot easier to treat them. They don't have the psychological one. It's just a biological one. It's just a physical one. Some of us have a tendency to want certain things more than others, that's for sure. So some people in psychology and biology, we call it a disposition. So some people might have a disposition to form an addiction more than someone else, but everyone is capable of being addicted to something. And look, I know people that aren't addicted to drugs, but they're addicted to making money or they're addicted to something else and they don't realize it, you know what I mean? That is probably bad for them because, again, of the balance. They're doing too much of one thing, whether it's running or reading or writing. Even if it sounds like a good thing, if you're doing too much of it, it's a form of addiction. So when we say addiction, we tend to automatically relate it to drug addiction, but there's many types of addictions. The addiction with regards to drugs is a little bit more complex because of the nature of them. It depends a lot on what type of drugs are available, how expensive or cheap they are and so forth, whether one comes from a culture that's frowned upon or not. All those things together will make us be a little bit more risk takers and eventually maybe form an addiction. Just going back to the original question as well, I mean, by forming new pathways, we can combat that addiction, yes. It's very easy to go back to it, of course, because all those other old pathways are still there. So that's why it's easy to revert. So it's just like learning another language. You might learn to speak French, but you'll always remember English. So it doesn't matter if you learn Chinese, French and German, you'll never forget English, even if you're not using it, because it's so ingrained in you. So this is the same. If someone's been an addict for a long time, those pathways will still remain. And that's why it's important that every day is a new day. Every day you continue creating new pathways, as long as you feel that it's beneficial for you. And once you come out of an addiction, you will realize, most people do that, it's far better not being addicted to anything and being able to be free to be adventurous. Sure, some people try things here and there or this, or they have a drink or they try that or they have a smoke, whatever it is, but they're not addicted to it. And that's, in a way, for some people, far better than being addicted to something or avoiding something altogether. Yeah, but for people that already were addicts, that's why we always emphasize that it's important not to do it at all, because those pathways are still there and they're not going to go away. Every day is very, very difficult. But it gets easier with time. If we do another talk where I can come in, I think we'll concentrate on addiction. I think that's a very important one, because there's lots of forms of addictions. There's many forms of addictions, and all addictions can be beaten. I've seen people with very, very severe issues, and it starts off with a decision. If you decide, that's good. Then you need to plan it and then just stick to it. There's 3 steps: deciding, defining a plan, and then doing it. And so if one is skipped, then it's very difficult to conquer it. And that's the same with anything in life, whether it's making money or creating something or asking a girl out or whatever it may be. We need to be sure of what we're doing, and we need to have a bit of a tactic and a net for if things don't work out. So we will talk about that. I think that could be a good one next time. But we got the last 10 minutes. Any further questions with routine or anything else that you find that? Yeah, good question. Good question. And we don't know the answer really to that. I think part of it is their brain, that it doesn't require that much sleep. It's a bit like, people that just eat and never get fat. Or the ones that eat a little bit and get fat. So we are limited by our own physiology. So some people, I think, do better with less sleep. Their brain just doesn't need it. But I personally think that the big part of it is the training. Yes, you can train yourself to sleep less. Your brain will overcome that. If they have mental issues such as like depression, anxiety, that type of stuff, then they need to get the adequate sleep that they require. So it's a bit like I was saying to you about me, like I would like to sleep less, but I don't because I know that I'm not going to function well. So you can train yourself, but there's a fine line where it's going to go against you. It's a little bit like weights, isn't it? You train yourself, you train so you want to have bigger muscles and so, but there's a point where if you do too much, that it might actually go against you. There's a point where it doesn't actually either feel good or look good. You know what I mean? So there's always a point where it's just about right, and that's what we all have to look for in life. There's always a point where this is about right. I'm not sleeping as much, but I'm not sleeping as little. Like for me, it's like 6.5 hours. I really need like 8, but I can't do 4. But 6.5 I can do well, and so it just gives me that extra hour and a half throughout the day. But now, like I said, I've been doing it for the last 10 years, so it's a little bit second nature. But there's days that I just got to sleep in, or we've had a late night, and it's like if you go out or something like that. So you still don't want to live like a robot. But if a person does have severe mental health issues, it's more important for them to get the adequate amount of sleep than to try to decrease their sleep. Once they have the adequate amount of sleep and they get into a good routine over a few months, then maybe they can start reducing. So say they're getting 8 hours, they can say, hang on, I want to start reducing. So you might start with 7 hours and 45 minutes for a little bit and go down a little like that. That's what I would recommend in that sense. It's not significant for them to get up early or to have more time through less sleep. What's more important is their mental health. We all look for that spot, the sweet spot, as they say, isn't it, in life, whether it's sleeping or whatever it may be. So, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But roughly you have an idea, then it's always good to aim for the ideal. But as we know, the ideal isn't always possible. So, and in psychology, even less so, because we're dealing with abstract terms like depression, mind, love, feeling, sleep, all these things that you can't take x-rays of. So they're abstract, they're not concrete. They're abstract. So some people might have different opinions on that. And for me, in this type of situation, I usually give the general opinion. So what the research shows. But you need to have, there's no blueprint for human nature. So you need to find your own. So like the A4 paper thing, that works for me, but you might decide it doesn't work for you. And the important thing is to be conscious of what you're doing, that you are trying to better yourself. So you're looking for it, you're searching. But sleep is very good for mental health. Enough sleep, too much sleep is not good, and not enough isn't either. So it's the sweet spot. Good question. Any other ones? And you're sleeping during the day. Has that always been the case for all your life? What about when you were a teenager and stuff? Same? Yeah? Wow. Interesting. Yeah, you're nocturnal. Well, you'd be the one we have guarding while we sleep if we're in the jungle. But look, I think with that, you basically, if I were to diagnose you have a sleep disorder, because like we said, it's not natural to do that. But for you, it's happened for so long that it's become your normal, But it's a disorder because compared to everyone else, that's what we call, that's what we have in psychology, statistics. It's most people do this, so this is outside of normality. So it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that for you, it's a little bit, I suppose, annoying, isn't it? For starters, to put it lightly. I mean, because you want you want to sleep at night and you want to do stuff during the day, especially, if you want to study or work or have a relationship or what, of course you want to do things during the day because that's when most people are awake. So it's important. I would start off doing a good assessment of your sleep, and then coming up with ways. But I think medication would be definitely a part of your therapy. You would need it in order to get you to at least that initial thrust to get you to sleep. But that's something that we can talk about. If you want, we can always. If you don't have anyone you can talk about that with, like a psychologist or something, we can arrange something for you later on with you to be able to talk to someone about that. Yeah, because I think there will be some techniques, some things that would help. But because there's medication involved, a psychologist, we can't obviously prescribe medication, but we can talk to the GP or maybe get a psychiatrist involved because it seems quite ingrained in you. So to change it wouldn't be overnight. It would be months and gradually, and initially probably medication, then fade you off that and see how you go. That would be my initial, but unless, you have an assessment first, or else it's just like throwing words in the wind, really. We need to, for your specific reasons, because there might be other reasons. There might be traumas. There might be something that's happened, in the night when you sometime throughout your life that your brain is always weary of the night, or something like that. There might have been that needs to be looked at in therapy, I think. But it's I can see it would be very frustrating for you. Yeah, no worries, mate. No worries. Yeah, just for now, what I would say, very simple, is still continue to have a good routine. Have a helping being, so still put sleep on your list. Have an alarm to say go to bed or whatever it is, or tell yourself I'm going to sleep. So you're telling your brain. Now this is sleep. If you can't sleep, the best thing to do, and that's for everyone the same. After about half an hour, you get up, but calmly. Okay, you get up for about 5 minutes. Avoid coffee and all that type of stuff, nicotine as well, because all these things keep us up a little bit. But just read something very mild and then try again after 5 minutes. Don't get too comfy when you get up. Just get drawn back by the bed, And then, so what we need to do in therapy, what happens with sleep disorders, is that we need to make sure that the brain understands that bed equals sleep. That's it. It doesn't equal thinking or tossing and turning or anything else or reading. If you're not in bed, then you're not asleep. If you're in bed, you have to be asleep. If you're not asleep and you're in bed, then you get up. So that's how it starts, that correlation. The brain starts correlating. Okay, bed equals sleep, yeah. And once that happens, then you've got a bit of a chance. At the moment, your brain doesn't correlate you being in bed or nighttime with sleep. So that's the first. We have to start from way back. So that's why it takes time. But for now, I would continue with the routine, because that's not going to go against you. It's just a little bit frustrating, but if you can hold the frustration and say, no, it's all right, I can't sleep, it's cool. Just going to get up for 5 minutes and you try again. And as opposed to spending the whole night awake in bed, you're spending most of the night getting up and down, but at least you're starting to connect the brain with bed equals sleep. And that's the first step. So that's what I would recommend just at the start for you, because that's going to save time.